I'm going to speak about the warriors of Israel throughout history. The Jewish warriors, the honorable men, men of strength, wisdom, might, character, master of his spirits, like King Shlomo, King Solomon. We speak of men who were like Moshe, the redeemer of the Jewish people, who should be just the standard to what's acceptable to the Jewish people in being, at least. Moshe was a very strong man, a very technical man, a very wisdomatic man, a very smart man. Moshe was a real Jew. Look at all that he accomplished. Someone else that at some point in time the Torah said, well, generally actually, but the particular time I'm talking about is the very birth to what is actually said in the Tanakh of Samson, that he was like Moshe. And plus the explanation saying that every Jew should be like him. Every Jew should be like Samson. I mean, take a look at the man. Very strong, very powerful. He liked a real woman. He wouldn't settle for a Jewish woman unless she was a real woman. Sure, the guy made a lot of mistakes, I guess, but that idea in that area is just about right. Take a look at the warriors throughout Israel's history. No warriors outside of Israel's time, except for Goliath and the Greeks, and a very small amount of peoples, could really come in certain ways of comparison to past Jewish warriors, which I'm going to name some as the ideal Jewish men. And I mean, considering the times that we're in, I think this is something really good to wake people up to. I mean, what? Israel's in exile, except for whoever. We're in a foreign land. This ain't home. Sure as hell ain't home. Israel's home. So now is, whatever time in history, I mean, considering the day and age that we're going through, that we're going to, and the things that we're going through, I mean, Jewish men ought to learn to be warriors like this, like the following. Now, for example, the 12 tribes, all of Yaakov's sons were warriors, believe it or not. Yaakov was a warrior. Didn't have to fight to prove it. Yitzhak was a warrior. Avraham was a warrior. I actually learned somewhere that God taught Abraham the martial arts. Most of today's, most of the people in the world today are descendants of Abraham anyway. Look at what's left. Look at the martial artists are. Avraham taught the martial arts to Yitzhak. Yitzhak taught the martial arts to Yaakov. Whatever. Yaakov taught it to the 12 tribes. Shimon and Levi going into whatever city, attacking the circumcised men for raping their sister. They used martial arts too. They wreaked havoc. They wreaked so much havoc together that Yaakov wanted to show, I should say Israel, the upgraded name to Yaakov, Israel, actually separated Shimon and Levi. So maybe that the rest of the Jewish people wouldn't learn what being hardcore is about and extreme is about before the fundamentals of righteousness, if God approves, to whatever test that people have to go through first, in order to then maybe get hardcore and extreme and do whatever they did to those men. Too painful to think about. So, here's some examples of some Jewish warriors. Samson, for example. He's like Moshe. That's what I learned. That's what I was taught. Every Jew, it says, should be like Samson. Shimshon. Every Jew should be like Samson. That man could give a real handshake, like a real man. Jewish women? I'm sure the ladies at that time, the Jewish ladies, wanted Samson. He didn't want them though, because they were not real ladies to his standard. That's the truth. Sources, I'm not going to say where I get them from, but that's the truth. He wanted to marry Palestinian women, Philistine women who were there at that time, which is at that time already Ishmaelim. That's the truth. Men like Moshe, men like Joshua, warriors. Think of these names. Think about the inspiration. Think about the feeling that you feel deep down inside when these names are mentioned in accordance to what these men have done and represent. Samson, Moshe, Joshua, King Shaul. King Shaul destroyed many Philistines, just as Samson did. King David. Take a good look. King David. That's a real Jew. He's looked at as a master in spirituality, in the physical area, in warriorhood. And that's a man, even to the day of his death, would be able to beat any Jewish man physically. That's a king. No Melech Mashiach stuff, right? That's a king right there. That man could have done it. Take a good look at this man right here, King David. The Star of David. Look at all that he's done. Look at his name. Out of all the tzaddikim who have already passed, I think I'll say is, even out of Moshe, King David stands out more to fulfilling the divine mission. I'm not even saying it's over Moshe. I'm just saying he stands out more to me for some reason. Even if Moshe did lots or maybe even more of whatever things better than him. Take a good look at these men. Take a good look at these men. Every Jewish man should say, I want to be like him. Look at all these men. Moshe, Samson, King Shaul, King David. Come on. Take a look at some of the non-Jewish warriors. I'll mention one. Goliath. Trained since whenever, I guess, he was able to take training, one way or the other. Goliath. Everyone was afraid of him except for King Shaul and King David. David at the time. Little David, 12 years old. This uncircumcised man is gonna, in other words, try to desecrate the name of God? I don't think so. That's little David right there. Take a look at his young age, 12 years old, before Bar Mitzvah. Look at what he did. Every young Jewish kid should say, I want to be like him. He was a little warrior at that age. Torah says he even killed lions and bears that attacked the animals that he was watching. He was able to. He defended their lives. Take a look at that man. Still yet today, out of all Jewish kings, King David, once again, stands out. Always David. Always King David. It's that little David that made it happen. It was in his heart, in his soul, made it all that he possessed. That's where it originates in. Even lots of the Jewish anti-Semitism today. Now, let's take a look at the times that we're in and whose descendants mostly occupy the world. Ishmaelim, men of Arabic descent, Edom, whatever, European nations, representation of America, Edom. Take a good look. What we're around to. I mean, as far as the Jews go, not counting the 10 lost tribes who don't know they're Jewish, of course. I mean, there's what? Mainly one tribe in Israel? Maybe some of the others, people from some of the other tribes. How many Jews from whatever tribes in America and around the world that know they're Jewish? I mean, what about the 10 lost tribes? Then we really have a party here. So, Israel is really in a small amount. Descendants of Canaan, let's say. Ham, Canaan. The darker people. African Americans, black folk. Descendants of Japheth, Greeks. Israel seems pretty small in amount. All the mixes, whatever. So, I mean, what do we see here? What, Jews in Israel, Jews in America, Jews around the world, whatever, you know. And still, you have the representation of America and the European nations supplying so much money to the Ishmaelim, I'll say, the Arabic nations, as means of developing their, whatever you want to call it, technology, whatever pretenses they say. And Israel and everybody else knows they always use it, and they're really giving it to them to destroy Israel, but they always use it to go after Israel, whether it's weaponry, paying terrorist families with money after the terrorist gives himself up to get a certain amount of Jews, Amalekite, Ishmaelim, so Amalekite mix, whatever. Take a good look at what we're around today, and yet we're the older brother. Believe it or not, the world regards us as the older brother, whether they know it or not, because we are to be regarded as the older brother. We know better than them spiritually. That's the truth. So, all the nations have supplied so much money to destroy Israel. Now, sure, Israel is capable of easily taking care of whatever people's regimes outside of Israel. Got the means to do it. Very easy, honestly, from what I know. Yet, they still want the world to okay all this shit the wrong way. Instead of standing up for the right reasons, doing it the right way, the way God wants it done, which is the disciplinary way. Be a light unto the nations, the Torah says to Israel. So, what's the problem here is the question. I mean, if Israel keeps taking all these things, and let's say they have whatever ways with Israel, what if they decide to say, hey, right, Israel seems to be like a bunch of pushovers in certain areas, maybe in certain respects. They might say, hey, let's regard Jews in America, Jews outside of Israel, the same way. And you have Jews in America, Jews outside of Israel, having to, take care of shit without the country Israel. Just the worst thing anybody could ask for. Take my word for it. Karma. What goes around comes around. Take my word for it. It's the worst. So, this whole thing, I mean, could bring back the memory of the Holocaust, for example. What do we want, a global Holocaust? Now, what brought the Holocaust? Jews giving up being Jewish. They want to be Germans. Germans are Germans. Jews are Jews. Sure, both sides could have learned from each other. That's good. Don't give up who you are. They gave it up at heart. Amalek wants Jews to give it up at heart and then to finish Jews off. That's what Amalek is about. That's what they're all about. So, it's time for Jews to remember to stop acting like the patient older brother and teach whoever, teach them some respect. Teach them the path of God and be a light unto the nations, as the Torah says. Israel, which is a Jewish people, is to be a light unto the nations. When you have all the other outside nations taking all these shots to Israel, wherever, whoever. Sure, us Jews outside of Israel look bad. Fine. Fine. Take the blow and move on. Moving on. How moving on is the question. It's time for Jews to stop learning to take a hit and be patient, because you're really taking a kid's hit. It's really not that bad. But if we keep desecrating God's name, we don't want God to give us a hit of his own. It's been done already. It's been done before. Barack Hussein Obama got into the White House because God wanted this man, the evil, Barack Hussein Obama, Gematria 501. The evil equals Gematria 501. Yishmaelim equals Gematria 501. So, as the Torah says, the evil that will befall you, which whatever days, welcome. This is one to know what evil is, to fight it God's way, by teaching the world God's way. Israel is to guide the Noahides. I'm sure deep down their attitude's like, Israel, where you been the whole time? False rabbinic leadership made you not care about Gentiles who were truly your friends. People who were purposely misleading you. False rabbinic leaders who say, I would not permit my student to go to this and this wedding. They never have a right to give any permissions or any authority to even say something like this. They have no right to tell you, eat cheese or meat this day. My rabbi told me to. No. No authority whatsoever. Okay? It's time to show the world who the older brother is. Honestly, I can't blame them too much. They just don't know better. Because people in the country Israel are acting stupid. Instead of destroying their enemies, piece of cake, 1, 2, 3. No, they have to make rubber bullets inside of a gun to shoot at people who are trying to actually kill Israeli soldiers. That's what they did before. Rubber bullets. What is this? Are you kidding me? I mean, the world doesn't realize you make rubber bullets. Rubber bullets, just to put them down. You shoot them and they go down. You don't kill them. You don't kill Palestinians trying to kill Israeli soldiers. I mean, you waiting for God to give you a hit? People in the country Israel? Give me a break. Real Jews want to give you a hit. Men of God want to give you a hit. God is just holding men of God back. Because you would be crying for a bunch of babies as the older brother. You'd be in fear. Israel, you're making all Jews look bad with this rubber bullet stipulation bullshit, giving free service, free cell phones to, and benefits from what I heard that even Israelis don't have, to Palestinian enemies. I'm not talking about just Palestinians, I'm talking about Palestinian enemies, the ones that want to destroy you. If you, God forbid, would have been destroyed, then they could just say to the whole world, now the rest of the Jews. So, back to the topic. The nations, whichever nations, especially Edom, which have supplied so many of the Arabic nations so much money. Lots of money. What was it that I read? Was it $800.3 million or something? America, $700.3 million. What did Europe? Europe gave a lot. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of weaponry. Still no results on Arabic nations. Russia supporting Ahmadinejad, a nuclear bomb. What's going on there? And nations are acting like little kids who keep taking cheap shots at their big brother. Big brother's just walking around irresponsibly, ignoring it. And the nations say, "Oh, let's get nasty now. Let's show them what nasty is." Until finally the big brother says, "You want to see what nasty is? You want to see what nasty is, kid? Come on." He beats his ass and shows him what nasty is like. Wake up. The nations of the world forgot what nasty is like when it comes to Israel. You see, Israel, Yaakov, whose name became Israel, he taught his sons to do things the godly way, God's way. Don't just attack everybody else because you can, even in the nasty way, unless they earned it, unless they fully decided they want to freaking kill you, and they're going after you, or whatever. Then it's self-defense. Then you do what you got to do. What did Shimon and Levi do? They gave a little deal to them. They said, "Yeah, we'll marry you off to our sister." They raped the sister and they gave it back. And like, oh, it's, after all, it's Yaakov's daughter, right? Gave the sister back. She was raped. Shimon and Levi like, "Yeah, sure, hey, circumcise yourself because we require for you to circumcise yourselves. All of your men, then we'll give you our sister. She'll be your little princess. She'll marry this guy, whatever. You have princes and princesses, kings and queens, whatever the deal was." They didn't care anyway. Their point was get them circumcised. They could they could do the same damage if they wanted to anyway. Shimon and Levi and the rest of whoever of Yaakov's sons going in there and destroying all of them anyway. I mean, they waited to get them to their weakest point because they wanted to show Yaakov's sons, I guess, what nasty is like. You're Yaakov's sons, honorable people. Oh, you're so strong and capable from what we heard. Oh, he's your older brother Yehuda. Oh, he's so popular and all that. Look at how big he is. Look at how strong he is. We'll show you. It could be nasty too. We know you can get nasty. Little brother, or big brother, I should say. They decided to, hey, we're showing what nasty is. We're showing what getting nasty is like. Shimon and Levi got them to their weakest point possible, but they could have. They're all circumcised and in pain and all messed up, whatever else. And they went in to that city, wherever it was, started killing all of these bastards for what they did to their sister. And one needs to ask themselves, according to the 7 Noahide laws, is this the right way or is this the wrong way? Would they try to kill you if you'd say, no, you can't marry our sister? All of them probably not. Maybe the rapist would come after the brother who said no later on. So I'm sure this could have been dealt with maybe differently. They wanted to show these mother effers what nasty is about. Shimon and Levi. So Israel, Yaakov was given the name Israel, separated the two. Basically set something out, whatever you want to call it, so that they will not be together again. Because look what they did together. It's a bond that lasts. Look what they did. They wreaked havoc. They left them all dead. Those two. They made them suffer. It was torturous what they did to those bastards. I mean, what did the rest of the brothers do? Nothing like this shit. So, the point I'm making here, I heard a great man give a little speech a long time ago. Said something like this, which made a lot of sense to me. Only at the right time. If the nations of the world, of course, avoiding wars, sure. But once you have some nations, or many nations, or most nations even, supplying Yishmaelim, the Arab nations, with so much money to become a hitman for Israel, to Israel, this is something that marks a challenge to all the Jewish people, which Israel should really not try to cover up. Let all Jews know. You know, many of us in exile are not like Israel. So, when it's time, if the point in history comes to if and or when, that's what I mean, if and or when, it's time to be like Shimon and Levi, show these little mother effers exactly who they're playing with. The nation chosen by God. Screw your beliefs. Get to know him. Yishmaelim, Edom, get to know him. Forget your beliefs. Know it. Don't act on it. If you think that something's true, you're killing people. Not just Jews. You're killing everyone. You almost can. Islamic nations. Keep going like this, Islamic nations. I'm sure some of you heard of the job that I did. Islamic nations. Keep going like this. Karma's gonna come around. If you want to act on religion, make sure you know it's true first. Don't persecute the holy supreme nation because you have beliefs and you decided to persecute the holy supreme nation in the first place because Israel looks like a pushover. Jews outside of Israel are not like Jews in Israel. Israel, real Jews are going to live there. Get your act together. So what's the point of this topic? To whoever wants to get nasty, Jews, remember what Shimon and Levi did. If it comes down to it, if it's right, for the right reason, show them what nasty's all about. Hardcore style. Show you what extreme really is about. Says your older brother, Gentiles. Older respect, one love. Our ancestors were not Jewish. Have some respect. They were like, Gentiles, you know what I'm saying? Gentiles? You're Gentiles, right? You're not Jewish? Who's any Gentile to put down anyone from the Jewish nation? Our ancestors, accepted the Torah, the mission from God, went from Gentile, you could say, to Jewish, just like Yaakov was given the name Israel. Don't try to persecute because you think you can, when you really can't. That's the truth. Israel is your older brother. And I apologize on behalf of Israel to Gentiles who are about the 7 Noahide laws, who did not get the guidance to the path from Jews that they should have when they were looking. There are corrupt peoples everywhere, you know what I mean? This shit's gonna get taken care of. So, from once Gentiles to then Jewish, from accepting the Torah. No offense, but you think it's okay to pay off Arabic nations lots of money when they use it, and what it all goes down to is the challenge to all the Jewish people getting nasty. All due respect to the younger brother, no offense. This is verbal defense, meaning nobody honestly wants this shit to get physical. You don't want it to get physical. Take my word for it. One love to you, the Jewish people. You're the older brother. Act like it. Lesson learned. Point is here. Lesson learned. Shimon and Levi. Remember what they did. If we have to, we can. Ain't old Novado. There's nothing besides God.